Admiral Zexathari stared at the main screen with his yellow eyes filled with worry. The battle reports kept coming in, and each one was worse than the last. His reptilian hands gripped the command chair as another red dot disappeared from the star map, another world lost to the void swarm. The bridge of his flagship was quiet except for the soft beeping of computers and the nervous breathing of his crew. Officers from 12 different alien species worked together, but their faces all showed the same thing: fear. They had been fighting the swarm for 3 years now, and they were losing badly. "Sir, we just lost contact with Sector 7, reported Lieutenant Tavara, her crystal-like skin glowing blue with stress. The ethereal race always changed colors with their emotions, and blue meant deep worry. The entire defense fleet gone. Zexathari closed his eyes for a moment. Sector 7 had 50 warships and millions of people. Now it was just empty space and floating metal. The void swarm did not take prisoners. They did not want territory. They just destroyed everything alive and moved on to the next target. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked his tactical officer. 812 combat-ready vessels across all fleets, sir," came the reply from Commander Vorthak, a bear-like alien with thick fur and sad eyes. "We started this war with over 4,000. The numbers hurt to hear." The Galactic Confederation had been the greatest alliance in known history. 12 proud species working together, sharing technology and knowledge. Now they were just refugees running from an enemy they could not understand or stop. Zexathari looked at the tactical display again. The void swarm ships looked like giant insects made of metal and flesh. They moved in perfect formation, never making mistakes, never showing mercy. Their weapons could melt through the strongest shields in seconds. Worse, they seemed to learn from every battle, becoming harder to fight each time. "Sir, incoming message from the Council," Tavara announced. The hologram of Chancellor Mordan appeared above the command console. The elderly Centaurian leader looked tired and old. His forearms hung at his sides like he had given up trying to gesture hope into existence. "Admiral," Mordan said slowly, "the Council has made a decision. We are pulling back to the core worlds. All Outer Rim territories are to be abandoned." Zexathari felt his heart sink. The Outer Rim had billions of people on hundreds of worlds. "Chancellor, if we abandon the Rim, the swarm will have a clear path to our homeworlds, yes," Mordan interrupted. "But if we spread our forces too thin, we will lose everything anyway. At least this way, we can make our final stand with our remaining ships together." The word final hung in the air like a death sentence. No one wanted to say it out loud, but everyone knew what it meant. This was not a retreat to regroup and fight again. This was the beginning of the end. "What about the humans?" asked Commander Vorthak suddenly. "Any word from Earth?" The bridge fell silent. Earth had gone quiet 18 months ago. The last message from humanity had been strange and short. "We remember the old ways." "Hold the line." Then nothing. No distress calls, no requests for help, no surrender broadcasts. Just silence. "We must assume they are gone," Chancellor Mordan said quietly. The swarm hit their sector hard. Earth was one of the first targets. Zexathari remembered the humans well. They were a young species, only recently joined to the Confederation. Most of the older races thought they were primitive and reckless. Humans used simple technology and crude weapons compared to the elegant energy weapons of the ethereals or the bioships of the Saurians. But they had something else. They never gave up, even when they should. During the early battles with the swarm, human ships would keep fighting even when their hulls were broken and their engines dead. Other species would retreat when the odds were bad, but humans would fly straight into enemy formations if it meant saving others. It was foolish and brave at the same time. "Admiral, we need to move soon," Tavara said, checking her instruments. "Swarm scouts are only 6 hours away from the Nexus Gate." The Nexus Gate was the most important strategic point in this part of the galaxy. It was an ancient structure that allowed ships to travel between star systems quickly. If the swarm took control of it, they could reach the core worlds in days instead of months. "Begin evacuation procedures," Zexathari ordered. "All civilian ships go first. Military vessels will cover the retreat." As his crew began sending orders to the fleet, Zexathari thought about how they had come to this point. The void swarm had appeared from the dark space between galaxies 3 years ago. No one knew where they came from or what they wanted. They just attacked anything that lived. Their ships were like nothing anyone had seen before. They looked alive but moved like machines. Some were as big as space stations, others small and fast like fighter jets. They all worked together like parts of one giant creature with one mind. The first battles had been disasters. The swarm's weapons cut through shields and armor like they were made of paper. Their ships could repair themselves during battle. When one was destroyed, the pieces would float to other swarm ships and become part of them. The aliens had tried everything. The Valorians used their most powerful energy weapons. The hegemony sent their largest battle cruisers. The ethereals tried to communicate with the swarm using telepathy. Nothing worked. The swarm just kept coming, world after world, system after system. "Sir, we're receiving some strange signals," Tavara announced, her crystal skin now glowing orange with confusion. "They're very faint, coming from deep space." "Swarm communications?" asked Vorthak. "No, sir, these are different. The encryption is very old. Older than any database we have," Zexthari frowned. "During a war like this, old signals usually meant abandoned ships or automated distress beacons from dead worlds. Can you decode them?" "Working on it, sir. The language patterns are unusual. They don't match any known species." Before Zexthari could respond, alarms began ringing throughout the ship. The main screen showed new contacts appearing at the edge of sensor range. "Lots of them. Swarm fleet incoming," shouted the tactical officer. "Estimated arrival time 4 hours. All ships, this is Admiral Zexthari," he announced on the fleet communications channel. "Emergency evacuation order. All civilian vessels jump to safe coordinates immediately." Military ships formed defensive positions around the Nexus Gate. As hundreds of ships began moving across the star field, Zexthari watched the swarm approach. Their formation was perfect as always, like a dark cloud spreading across space. Soon they would control another strategic point and the Confederation would be pushed back even further. "Sir," Tavara said quietly, "I'm still picking up those strange signals. They're getting stronger." "Focus on the evacuation, Lieutenant," Zexthari replied. Whatever those signals were, they would have to wait. Right now he had to save as many lives as possible before the darkness swallowed them all. But somewhere in the back of his mind, he wondered about the humans and their last message. We remember the old ways. What had they meant by that? And why did he feel like something important was about to happen? The evacuation from the Nexus Gate had been a nightmare. Zexthari sat in his command chair, watching the damage report scroll across his screen. They had lost 63 ships during the retreat, including 2 heavy cruisers and a medical transport full of wounded soldiers. The swarm now controlled the gate just as everyone had feared. "Admiral, incoming priority message from the research vessel Crystal Dawn," Tavara announced. Her crystal skin was still glowing orange, which meant she was confused about something. "Put them through," Zexthari replied. The hologram of Dr. Kellen appeared above the console. The ethereal scientist looked excited despite everything that had happened. Her crystalline features were bright white, which meant discovery or breakthrough. "Admiral, we have found something incredible in the outer nebula region," Dr. Kellen said quickly. "We were scanning for swarm activity when we detected massive energy signatures. They're not swarm technology, sir. They're something else entirely." Zexthari leaned forward. "Explain." "The energy patterns are ancient, Admiral. I mean, really ancient. Our dating system suggests the technology is at least 50,000 years old, maybe older. But the signatures are moving, which means whatever is out there is still active." Commander Vorthak looked up from his tactical station. Could it be some kind of automated defense system? Something left behind by an extinct civilization? "That's what we thought at first," Dr. Kellen continued. "But the movement patterns are too complex for simple automation. These signatures suggest large vessels, possibly an entire fleet." Zexthari felt a chill run down his spine. An ancient fleet that had been hidden for 50,000 years, suddenly becoming active during the worst crisis in galactic history. It seemed too convenient to be coincidence. "Doctor, have you been able to determine who built these vessels?" "That's the strange part, Admiral. We found fragments of communication signals attached to the energy signatures. Tavara has been helping us decode them and the results are disturbing." Tavara's skin shifted to deep blue. "Sir, the signals contain human language markers. Not modern human, but definitely from Earth's linguistic family. The problem is these signals are as old as the energy signatures themselves." The bridge fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same impossible thing. How could human language be attached to technology that was older than recorded galactic history? "There's more," Dr. Kalen added. "We've been analyzing historical records trying to understand the connection. Admiral, did you know that human technological advancement was unusually rapid? What do you mean? Zexathari asked. Most species take thousands of years to develop space travel after they discover fire. Humans did it in less than 10,000 years. That's incredibly fast, almost impossible without outside help. Vorthak growled softly, which was what his species did when they were thinking hard. Are you suggesting the humans had help from whoever built these ancient ships? I'm suggesting something more complicated than that, Dr. Keelan replied. We've found references in Earth's archaeological records to something called the First Ones and the Inheritors. Most human scholars thought these were just myths, but what if they weren't? Tavara's console beeped with an incoming transmission. Sir, we're receiving a message from Captain Torres aboard the Freedom's Hope. She says they have found something we need to see. The hologram changed to show Captain Maria Torres, one of the few human officers still serving with the Confederation fleet. Her dark hair was pulled back in a military style, and her brown eyes looked tired but determined. Admiral, my ship was investigating debris fields in the outer sectors when we found this, she said, holding up a small metallic object. It's a data core from a human exploration vessel that went missing 2 years ago. The ship was called the Pathfinder, and they were investigating some ruins on the moon of a dead world. What kind of ruins? Zexathari asked. Ancient ones, sir. The data core contains their final reports before they disappeared. According to this, they found a massive underground complex, filled with technology that shouldn't exist. The technology was clearly not human, but it responded to human DNA somehow. Captain Torres paused and looked directly at the camera. Admiral, the report mentioned something called Protocol Lazarus. The crew believed they had found evidence that humans were meant to inherit this technology, but only when they were ready. Ready for what? Vorthak asked. To fight something called the Old Enemy, Torres replied. Sir, the data core contains references to a great war that happened before recorded history. Some kind of cosmic threat that the First Ones fought and defeated, but at great cost. They left their technology behind for their inheritors to use if the enemy ever returned. Zexathari felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in his mind. Captain, show me the exact coordinates where this ship was found. Torres shared the location data, and Tavara immediately plotted it on the star map. The coordinates were in the same region where Dr. Kellen had detected the ancient energy signatures. There's something else, Torres continued. The data core contains a partial transmission that the Pathfinder crew received just before they disappeared. It was coming from Earth. Earth has been silent for 18 months, Vorthak pointed out. Not silent, sir. Hidden, Torres corrected. The transmission talks about awakening the Guardians and preparing for the return. Admiral, I don't think humanity was destroyed by the swarm. I think they went home to wake something up. Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The tactical officer called out, Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting massive objects emerging from the nebula region. The signatures match what Dr. Kellen found, but they're much closer now. Zexathari stood up and walked to the main screen. Show me. The display changed to show the outer edge of their sensor range. At first, there was nothing but empty space and distant stars. Then slowly, shapes began to appear. They were huge, much larger than any ship in the Confederation fleet. Their designs were unlike anything Zexathari had ever seen. Smooth and organic-looking, but clearly artificial. Sir, we're receiving a transmission, Tavara announced, her skin now glowing bright white with excitement and fear. From the approaching ships? No, sir, from Earth. It's the first signal we've received from human space in 18 months. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was calm and confident, speaking in accented English that somehow sounded both familiar and ancient. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet. To all Confederation forces in this sector, please maintain your current positions. We are coming to join the fight. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Finally, Vorthak spoke in a whisper. The humans are alive. Not just alive, Zexathari said, staring at the massive shapes on the screen. They're coming with ships that are older than our entire civilization. Tavara looked at her instruments with growing amazement. Sir, those vessels, they're not just ancient. They're impossible. The energy readings suggest technology far beyond anything we understand. As they watched, more shapes emerged from the nebula, an entire fleet of massive ancient vessels all heading toward the war zone. Each ship looked like it had been grown rather than built. with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to shift and change as they moved. "Admiral," Dr. Keelan's voice came through the communication system. "I'm reading something incredible. These ships, they're not just carrying human crews. The technology itself has been integrated with human biology somehow. It's like the ships and crews have become one thing." Zexathari felt his hands trembling as he gripped his command chair. The humans had not just survived the swarm's attack. They had gone away and become something else, something more than they had been before. "All ships, this is Admiral Zexathari," he announced on the fleet communication channel. "Prepare to receive human vessels of unknown capabilities. And may the ancestors help us all, because I think we're about to see what humanity becomes when they stop holding back." The human fleet approached like a dream made real. Zexathari stood on his bridge, watching vessels that seemed to flow through space rather than fly through it. Each ship was kilometers long, their hulls gleaming with an inner light that pulsed like a heartbeat. They moved in perfect formation, but not the rigid patterns of military vessels. This was something organic, alive. "Admiral, the lead human ship is requesting permission to come alongside," Tavara reported. Her crystal skin kept shifting between colors. White for wonder, blue for worry, orange for confusion. She could not settle on just one emotion. "Granted," Zexathari replied. "And Tavara, open a channel to the entire fleet. Everyone needs to hear this." The main screen activated and Captain Sarah Chen appeared, but she was not the same as the humans everyone remembered. Her skin had a faint silver glow and her eyes held depths that seemed older than her face. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that made it sound like music. "Admiral Zexathari, it is good to see you again," she said with a smile that was both warm and sad. "I know you have questions about what has happened to us. We will answer them all, but first you need to understand what we are fighting." "Captain Chen," Zexathari began, "where have you been? Earth went silent 18 months ago. We thought you were all dead." "Not dead, Admiral, changed." Captain Chen's expression grew serious. "When the swarm first attacked our outer colonies, we did what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds. We went looking for help in places others would not dare to search." The screen split to show images of Earth's moon, but instead of the gray, empty surface everyone knew, these pictures showed massive structures buried beneath the lunar surface. Gleaming tunnels and vast chambers filled with technology that seemed to blend machine and living tissue. "We found the ruins of the first ones," Captain Chen continued. "Not just ruins, Admiral. We found their sleeping guardians waiting for the day when their inheritors would need them." Commander Vorthak leaned forward in his chair. "Captain, are you saying that humans are descended from this ancient race?" "Not descended from them," Captain Chen corrected. "Chosen by them. 50,000 years ago, the first ones fought a war against creatures from the void between galaxies. They won, but the cost was everything they were. Before they transcended beyond physical existence, they left their technology and knowledge for a species they believed would one day be worthy of it." Captain Torres, who had been listening from her own ship, spoke up on the communication channel. "Sarah, the data we found suggested that the enemy would return." "Is that what the swarm is?" "The Void Swarm is not the original enemy," Captain Chen replied. "They are something worse. They are a weapon created by our true enemy, designed to awaken when the inheritors finally claim their birthright. The moment we began integrating with First One technology, the swarm activated." Zexathari felt cold fear creep up his spine. "You mean this entire war happened because humanity discovered their inheritance?" "Yes and no," Captain Chen said. "The war was always going to happen. The swarm was sent here long ago, programmed to activate when sensors detected First One technology being used again. But we are not sorry for what we became, Admiral, because now we can protect you all." The screen changed to show the interior of Captain Chen's ship. It was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. The walls seemed to be alive, pulsing with soft light. Crew members moved through corridors that reshaped themselves as needed. Humans and technology had become one thing, impossible to separate. "This is what we chose," Captain Chen explained. "To merge our consciousness with the Guardians, the first ones left behind. We are still human, but we are also something more. We have their knowledge, their technology, their purpose." Dr. Kellen's voice came through the communication system from her research vessel. "Captain, the energy signatures we detected. Those are not just ships, are they?" "You are very perceptive, Doctor. No, they are not just ships. They are living vessels grown from First One biotechnology and bonded with human crews. Each ship is a partnership between our species and theirs, between the past and the future. As if to demonstrate, Captain Chen's ship began to change shape. The hull flowed like liquid metal, extending new sections and retracting others. Weapon ports opened that had not been there before, revealing energy cannons that glowed with contained starfire. "My God," whispered one of the alien officers on Zexathari's bridge. "The first ones were builders and protectors," Captain Chen continued. "They created beauty and defended life wherever they found it. When they faced the ultimate darkness, they chose to become guardians of the galaxy, rather than rulers of it. Now we carry on their mission." "Captain," Zexathari asked, "and can you defeat the swarm?" For the first time, Captain Chen's expression showed something like sadness. "Admiral, the swarm you have been fighting is just the advance force. The real enemy is still coming. But yes, we can defeat them. Not just the swarm, but the intelligence that sent them. We have the weapons and knowledge to end this threat forever." The communication channel suddenly filled with excited voices from across the Confederation fleet. Alien officers were crying, laughing, shouting with relief and joy. After 3 years of losing battles and watching worlds die, someone was finally offering them hope. "All human vessels, this is Captain Chen," she announced to her own fleet. "Begin Phase 1 deployment. Show our allies what we have learned." What happened next would be remembered for generations. The human ships spread out across space, each one beginning a transformation that defied understanding. Their hulls opened like flowers, revealing internal structures that pulsed with life. Energy fields extended between the vessels, creating a network of connected power that made space itself seem to glow. "Admiral," Tavara said in a voice filled with wonder, "I'm reading energy levels that should be impossible. Each human ship is generating more power than our entire fleet combined. That's not even the best part," Captain Chen said with a smile that reminded everyone why humans had always been both loved and feared for their optimism. "Admiral Zexathari, with your permission, we would like to show you what happens when humans stop holding back." Before Zexathari could respond, long-range sensors detected the approach of a swarm fleet. Hundreds of the biomechanical vessels that had terrorized the galaxy for 3 years, moving in perfect formation toward the human position. "Swarm fleet detected," reported the tactical officer. "Estimated time to contact 30 minutes. "Admiral, should we retreat?" Zexathari looked at Captain Chen's calm expression on the screen, then at the impossible human ships spreading across space like a constellation of new stars. "No," he said firmly. "We hold position. Let's see what our human friends can do." Captain Chen's smile grew wider. "Thank you for trusting us, Admiral. All human vessels prepare for combat operations. It's time to remind the galaxy why the first ones chose us as their inheritors." As the human fleet prepared for battle, something extraordinary happened. Throughout the Confederation fleet, alien crew members began to weep. Not from fear or sadness, but from joy and relief so pure it could not be contained. After 18 months of believing humanity was extinct, after 3 years of losing every battle, they were about to witness the return of their most stubborn and hopeful allies. And these allies had brought weapons older than civilization itself. "Captain Chen," Zexathari said formally, "the Confederation fleet is at your disposal. Tell us how we can help." "Just watch, Admiral," Captain Chen replied. "And remember this moment. Because today the galaxy learns that some things are worth any sacrifice to protect." The swarm fleet emerged from hyperspace like a dark cloud spreading across the stars. Zexathari had seen them attack many times before, but it never got easier to watch. Hundreds of biomechanical vessels moved in perfect unity, their hulls gleaming with organic armor and bristling with weapons that could tear through any known defense. "Swarm formation analysis complete," reported the tactical officer. 347 vessels, including 12 super-heavy assault ships. "Admiral, this is one of their largest fleets." Zexathari gripped his command chair and prepared to give the order to retreat. The Confederation fleet had only 200 ships, and even with the mysterious human vessels, they were outnumbered. But before he could speak, Captain Chen's voice came through the communication system. "All Confederation ships maintain current positions. Human fleet is moving to intercept." "Captain Chen," Zexathari said urgently, "there are too many of them, even with your advanced technology." "Admiral," Captain Chen interrupted gently, "please trust us. This is what we were made for." The human ships began to move, and immediately Zexathari knew he was witnessing something that would change warfare forever. The vessels did not accelerate like normal ships. Instead, they seemed to fold space around themselves. appearing and disappearing across the battlefield in the blink of an eye. "Sir, the human ships are moving faster than our sensors can track," Tavara announced, her crystal skin now pure white with amazement. "They're not using conventional propulsion at all." The first contact came when a human vessel materialized directly in front of a swarm super heavy. The alien ship's weapons fired immediately, energy beams that could melt through a space station. But the human ship simply absorbed the attack, its hull glowing brighter as it converted the enemy fire into its own energy. Then the human vessel responded. What emerged from its weapon ports was not energy beams or missiles. It was something that looked like liquid starlight, flowing through space toward the swarm ship. When it made contact, the enemy vessel simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not blown apart. It was unmade on a fundamental level, its matter converted into energy that the human ship absorbed. "Dear ancestors," whispered Commander Vorthak. "What kind of weapons are those?" "Not weapons," came Dr. Keelan's voice from her research ship. "I'm reading the energy signatures. They're using controlled matter conversion. They're literally eating the enemy ships." Across the battlefield, the human fleet engaged the swarm with devastating effectiveness. Each human vessel fought like it was alive, their hulls flowing and changing shape to adapt to different combat situations. When swarm ships tried to ram them, the human vessels simply opened holes in their hulls to let the enemies pass through, then closed around them like living traps. "Admiral, look at this," Tavara said, pointing to her sensor display. "The human ships are communicating with each other, but not through normal channels. They're using some kind of telepathic network." Zexathari watched in amazement as the human fleet moved like a single organism. Ships would appear exactly where they were needed, working together with perfect coordination. When one vessel was overwhelmed by multiple attackers, others would instantly teleport to its aid. But the most incredible thing was happening to the swarm itself. For the first time in 3 years of war, the enemy formation was breaking apart. The biomechanical ships that always moved in perfect unity were scattered across the battlefield, their coordination failing. "Captain Chen," Zexathari called. "What's happening to them? The swarm never breaks formation." "We're speaking to them in their own language," Captain Chen replied. Her image on the screen showed her standing in what looked like a living control room, her hands touching surfaces that pulsed with organic light. "The swarm operates through quantum consciousness networks. We learned how to disrupt those networks from the first ones." As she spoke, her ship moved toward one of the swarm super heavies. The enemy vessel fired everything it had, but the human ship phased through the attacks like they were not there. When it reached the swarm ship, something incredible happened. The human vessel extended tendrils of energy that penetrated the enemy hull. Instead of destroying the swarm ship, the tendrils seemed to be communicating with it. The biomechanical vessel suddenly stopped moving, its weapons powering down. "We're not just fighting them," Captain Chen explained. "We're freeing them. The swarm ships are not evil, Admiral. They're prisoners, forced to serve the real enemy through quantum slavery. We're breaking their chains." Throughout the battlefield, the pattern repeated. Human ships would approach swarm vessels and somehow communicate with them. One by one, the enemy ships began shutting down their weapons and drifting motionless in space. But not all of the swarm fleet gave up so easily. The largest vessels, the ones with the strongest quantum links to their controllers, continued to fight with desperate fury. They began targeting the Confederation ships, trying to force the humans to choose between offensive action and protecting their allies. "All Confederation vessels, evasive maneuvers," Zexathari ordered. But even as he spoke, he knew it was useless. The swarm weapons were too fast and too powerful. Then the human fleet did something that made every alien crew member gasp in wonder. Instead of choosing between attack and defense, they did both. The human ships created a protective barrier around the entire Confederation fleet, their hulls merging into a single energy field that absorbed every enemy attack. At the same time, other human vessels continued their assault on the remaining active swarm ships. They moved through space like ghosts, striking with weapons that rewrote the laws of physics with each shot. "Admiral," Captain Torres's voice came through the communication channel. "You need to see this. My sensors are picking up transmissions from the liberated swarm ships. They're sending thanks." Zexathari stared at his displays in disbelief. The biomechanical vessels that had terrorized the galaxy were now transmitting messages of gratitude to the human fleet that had freed them from mental slavery. The battle reached its climax when the Largest swarm super heavy, a vessel the size of a small moon, made a desperate charge toward the human command ship. Captain Chen's vessel, instead of avoiding the attack, moved directly toward the enemy. "Captain, what are you doing?" Zexathari called out. "Ending this," Captain Chen replied calmly. The two massive ships collided in space, but instead of an explosion, something beautiful happened. The human vessel wrapped around the swarm ship like a cocoon, and for several minutes both ships glowed with intense light. When the glow faded, only one ship remained, but it was neither human nor swarm. It was something new, a fusion of both technologies. "The Super Heavy has been converted," Captain Chen announced. "Its crew is free, and its weapons now serve the light instead of the darkness." Across the battlefield, the last few swarm ships powered down their weapons and joined their liberated companions. In less than an hour, what should have been the Confederation's final defeat had become their greatest victory. "All human vessels, begin recovery operations," Captain Chen ordered. "Help our new allies adapt to their freedom." As Zexathari watched human ships gently approaching the former swarm vessels, he felt tears running down his scaly cheeks. Around him, his bridge crew was openly weeping with joy and relief. Throughout the Confederation fleet, aliens who had thought they would die today were crying tears of amazement and gratitude. "Captain Chen," Zexathari said when he finally found his voice, "I have never seen anything like this. How is it possible?" "Because we remembered something the galaxy had forgotten," Captain Chen replied.
"Violence is not always the answer to violence.
Sometimes the greatest victory comes from turning enemies into friends." The human fleet began moving away from the battlefield, but they were not alone. The liberated swarm ships followed them, no longer prisoners of an evil intelligence, but free beings choosing their own path. "Where are you going now?" Zexathari asked. "To find the source," Captain Chen answered. "The intelligence that created the swarm is still out there, still sending more weapons against the galaxy. We're going to end this war permanently." As the combined human and former swarm fleet prepared to leave, Captain Chen appeared on the screen one last time. "Admiral, tell the Confederation Council that humanity keeps its promises. We said we would remember the old ways and hold the line. Now we're taking the fight to the enemy's home. Keep the galaxy safe until we return." Zexathari stood and saluted as the incredible fleet disappeared into hyperspace. Around him his crew was still crying, but now they were tears of hope instead of despair. 6 months had passed since the miraculous battle where humanity's ancient fleet had turned the tide of war. Zexathari stood in the rebuilt command center on Unity Station, watching ships from dozens of species work together to repair the damage caused by 3 years of fighting. But today was special. Today the humans were coming home. "Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting the human fleet approaching from the outer rim," Tavara reported. Her crystal skin glowed with warm yellow light, the color of contentment and peace. "They're broadcasting an all-clear signal." Zexathari smiled, something he had been doing much more often lately. "Put me through to the entire Confederation. Everyone should hear this." The communication channels opened to connect him with millions of beings across hundreds of worlds. Leaders, soldiers, families, children. Everyone who had lived through the terror of the Swarm War was waiting to hear what had happened to their protectors. "Citizens of the Galactic Confederation," Zexathari began, "I am proud to announce that Captain Sarah Chen and the human fleet are returning. The war is over. The threat has been eliminated permanently." Across the galaxy, celebrations began. On Saurian worlds, great drums thundered in victory songs. The ethereal planets sparkled with light displays that could be seen from space. Even the normally serious Centaurians were dancing in their crystal cities. The main screen activated to show Captain Chen's ship materializing near the station. But something was different. The vessel looked even more beautiful than before. Its biomechanical hull now decorated with patterns that seemed to tell stories of distant worlds and ancient battles. "Admiral Zexathari," Captain Chen's voice came through the speakers, warm with affection and exhaustion. "Permission to dock and report mission complete." "Permission granted, Captain, and welcome home." An hour later, Captain Chen stood in the station's main conference room, addressing the assembled leaders of the Confederation. She still had that faint silver glow to her skin, and her eyes still held depths that spoke of cosmic knowledge. But now she also looked tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. "The source of the swarm has been destroyed," she announced simply. "The intelligence that created them was ancient and powerful, but it was also alone and afraid. In the end, we did not need to destroy it. We helped it remember what it had forgotten. Chancellor Morden leaned forward in his chair. "Captain, please explain what you found out there." Captain Chen activated a holographic display that showed star charts of regions beyond the galactic rim. The enemy was not evil by choice. Long ago, it was part of the same cosmic community that included the first ones. But when a plague of madness swept through the universe, it became infected and forgotten its original purpose. The display showed images of vast, twisted structures floating in the void between galaxies. For millions of years, it created weapons like the Swarm to fight an enemy that no longer existed. When we found it, the entity was completely insane, trapped in a war that had ended before our galaxy was even formed. Dr. Kellen, attending via hologram from her research ship, asked, "How did you cure something that ancient and powerful?" "The same way the first ones taught us to cure the swarm ships," Captain Chen replied. "With compassion instead of violence. We showed it memories of peace, reminded it of what the universe was like before the madness. It took months, but eventually it remembered. The holographic display changed to show the twisted structures transforming into something beautiful. Gardens of living crystal growing in the void, biomechanical creatures that sang instead of fought, entire worlds being born from reformed matter. The entity is now using its power to heal the damage it caused," Captain Chen continued. "It's creating life instead of destroying it. The threat to our galaxy is over forever." Admiral Zexithari stood up slowly. "Captain, on behalf of the Galactic Confederation, I formally surrender command of all military forces to you and your fleet. You have proven that humanity deserves to lead us into whatever comes next." Captain Chen shook her head with a gentle smile. "Admiral, with respect, you misunderstand what we've learned. Leadership was never the goal. Protection was. We don't want to rule the galaxy, we want to guard it." She walked to the large window that looked out into space, where her fleet waited among the stars like gentle giants. "The first ones taught us that true strength comes from serving others, not commanding them. We're going to take our place as guardians of the outer darkness, making sure that nothing like the Swarm ever threatens our home again." "But what about Earth?" asked Captain Torres, who had been promoted to Admiral for her role in decoding the ancient signals. "What about humanity's place in the Confederation?" "Earth will always be our home," Captain Chen replied, "and humans will always be part of the galactic community. But some of us have chosen a different path. We're going to explore the spaces between galaxies, learning from the first ones and helping other civilizations that might face similar threats." Chancellor Morden stood up with obvious emotion. "Captain, the Confederation owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. How can we possibly thank you for what you've done?" Captain Chen turned back to face the assembled leaders, and for a moment, she looked like the young human officer she had once been instead of the cosmic guardian she had become. "Just remember us," she said simply. "Tell your children and your children's children that when darkness came to consume the galaxy, humans chose to become light. And if you ever need us, just call our name among the stars. We'll hear you." The formal ceremony ended, but the real goodbye happened later on the station's observation deck. Zexithari stood with Captain Chen, watching her incredible fleet prepare to depart for the unknown regions beyond the galaxy. "Will we ever see you again?" he asked. "Of course," Captain Chen replied with a laugh that reminded him of the humans he had first met years ago. "Brave and optimistic and slightly crazy. We're not leaving forever. We're just taking the long patrol route." She handed him a small device that looked like a piece of living crystal. "If the galaxy ever faces a threat it cannot handle, activate this. We'll come running. And if you face something out there that you cannot handle alone," Captain Chen's smile grew wider, "then we'll remember what you taught us, Admiral. We'll call for help. After all, that's what friends are for." As the human fleet began moving toward the galactic rim, something wonderful happened throughout Confederation space. On every world, beings of every species stopped what they were doing and looked up at the stars, and many of them began to cry. They were not tears of sadness, but tears of gratitude so pure and deep that they seemed to come from the soul itself. Humans had saved them all, and in doing so, had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to be heroes. Zexithari remained on the observation deck long after the human fleet had disappeared into the cosmic distance. Around him, the normal business of the galaxy continued. Ships came and went, carrying trade and messages and dreams between the stars. The war was over and life was returning to normal, but it was a better normal now. The galaxy had learned that even in the darkest times, there were still those willing to sacrifice everything to protect others. The humans had shown them that courage was not about being unafraid. It was about doing what was right even when you were terrified. From somewhere in the depths of space came a faint transmission, barely detectable by the station's most sensitive equipment. It was a human voice, singing an old Earth song about friendship and hope and never giving up. Tavara, monitoring the communication systems, smiled as she decoded the signal. "Admiral, the humans are broadcasting a message to the entire galaxy." "What does it say?" Sexithari asked. "We are still here. We are still watching. And you are still safe." Sexithari nodded and wiped away a tear that he was not ashamed to shed. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of known space, humanity stood guard against the darkness. They had chosen duty over dominion, service over sovereignty. And the galaxy slept peacefully, knowing that the Guardians were on watch. Years would pass, and the story would be told and retold